Have you ever wondered what drives someone to abandon everything, face dangers, and even give up their life for a cause? Today, we're diving into the story of Jesus' apostles, ordinary men who accepted an extraordinary calling. They left their families and routines to follow Christ, dedicating their lives to spreading His teachings. But, contrary to what many might imagine, this mission was filled with difficulties, persecutions, and nearly impossible challenges. These apostles, with unwavering faith, faced brutal persecution and met tragic ends, yet each of them left behind a legacy of courage and devotion. Their stories have become symbols of faith and inspiration, passed down through generations and shaping the Christian traditions we know today. In this video, you'll discover how these men confronted the impossible and left eternal marks on history. If you're ready to witness powerful examples of faith and commitment, like the video and prepare for an epic journey. Imagine ordinary men living their lives as fishermen, tax collectors, or simple laborers. They were people like you and me, each with their own worries, occupations, and dreams. Then suddenly, a call comes that changes everything. Jesus, the Messiah, extends His hand and invites these men to leave everything behind. They aren't given any guarantees, nor promises of wealth or stability, just an invitation to follow Him and share a message that, according to Him, would bring salvation to the world. This was the beginning of the apostles' mission, who would go from being ordinary men to pillars of faith, dedicated to spreading Christ's teachings to every corner they could reach. This call, however, demanded deep sacrifices. It wasn't simply an invitation to learn, but to live and transmit a message of transformation, one they would have to believe in as absolute truth. Those who chose to follow Him knew they were giving up their security and accepting a life of uncertainties and challenges. They left their families, jobs, and everything they knew to follow a master who proclaimed love and compassion as the paths to God. Each apostle knew that this was a mission requiring more than dedication. It demanded their total loyalty to Christ, even in the darkest hours. To many, it might have seemed like a radical choice. After all, they were following someone who defied the religious and cultural structures of the time. Yet these men felt in their hearts that the mission given by Jesus was not a simple career choice or a change in routine. It was the purpose of their lives. They were called to become apostles, the bearers of a message that challenged the status quo and questioned everything understood about power, justice, and faith. To them, it was more than a duty, it was the only response they could give to such a profound calling. And so, alongside Jesus, these apostles became witnesses to teachings that would shape the foundation of a faith that would last through the ages. They heard every word up close, witnessed every miracle, and learned from Christ Himself about the value of faith and courage. But each of them knew that learning wouldn't end there. They would be sent out into the world to carry forward the testimony of Christ, facing difficulties and trials that would test their faith to its limits. It was a journey with no return, where their commitment and dedication would make them fundamental figures in the history of Christian faith. For you, the viewer, the apostles' mission is an invitation to reflect on the calls we encounter in our own lives. How far are we willing to go for a purpose we believe is greater than ourselves? If you feel that this journey of faith and sacrifice speaks to you in some way, like the video and join us as we explore the incredible journey of these men of faith. Over time, the apostles' mission to spread Christ's teachings became increasingly challenging. Every city they visited, every word they proclaimed, sparked a range of reactions, often filled with hatred and resistance. Local authorities saw them as a threat to the established religious and political order. And one by one, these men who had left everything to follow Christ began to face the cost of faith, persecution, imprisonment, and ultimately, martyrdom. They knew the danger, but this awareness only strengthened their resolve. For the apostles, Earthly life was fleeting, and their true purpose lay in remaining loyal to their testimony of Christ, even in the face of death. Each apostle met a tragic end marked by suffering and sacrifice. They were not martyrs by accident. They were men whose unshakable faith led them to face suffering with a courage that inspired everyone around them. It wasn't a quick or quiet death. John was cast into boiling oil but miraculously survived, becoming a living testament to divine power. Peter, in an act of humility and devotion, requested to be crucified upside down, as he didn't feel worthy of dying in the same manner as Christ. These accounts, recorded in church traditions, are powerful reminders that the apostles lived and died with a loyalty that went beyond fear. Imagine the inner strength needed to face a painful death, knowing they could avoid it all by simply denying their faith. But they chose to press on, knowing their martyrdom was not the end but a continuation of their mission. It was not just a testimony of words but a testimony of life, where their dedication would echo through the generations to come. For them, life was a passage, and the true victory lay in the eternity they believed awaited them alongside Christ. Thus, each persecution and sacrifice became a living proof that the message of Jesus was worth more than any earthly fear. These stories of martyrdom, while strengthening the Christians who witnessed their courage, also challenged the values of the time, as they revealed a strength that did not come from human power but from unshakable faith. Persecution did not extinguish faith, it strengthened it. The blood of the apostles became the fertile soil that nurtured the growth of Christianity. Their deaths, contrary to expectations, did not silence their message, rather, they made it more alive and present. They were proof that faith in Christ was not a mere belief but a truth that transformed lives and stood firm even in the face of the greatest challenges. For you, the viewer, these men's journey invites you to reflect on the challenges we face for what we believe in. How often are we willing to sacrifice our comfort to remain faithful to what we hold as true? If this story of faith and courage resonates with you, follow the channel and join us in discovering this inspiring story. The apostles' stories are unparalleled accounts of courage, where love for Christ and commitment to his message became stronger than the fear of death. Imagine the apostle John, cast into boiling oil because of his faith. For anyone, this would have been a death sentence. Yet, in a twist that defied logic and nature, John survived. This event spread as a living testimony to divine power and protection, revealing to those who witnessed it that something extraordinary accompanied these men. It wasn't just a belief, it was a faith that transformed, protected, and inspired all who saw and heard of these miraculous events. Peter, on the other hand, older and seasoned in his faith, faced his final moment with singular humility. When his time came, he was sentenced to crucifixion, a painful form of death he knew well, having witnessed Christ endure the same. Peter, however, made a request that astonished everyone. He asked to be crucified upside down, as he did not feel worthy to die in the same way as his master. This act of humility and extreme devotion made evident the depth of his love and respect for Christ, showing everyone that his dedication extended beyond life and human pride. These accounts became living legends among Christians, stories of faith and courage that spread quickly. Each of the apostles, with their personal sacrifice, showed that faith in Christ was not a simple choice but a complete surrender of body and soul. They taught, through their lives, that a true disciple is willing to face any challenge, even the most extreme, for what they believe in. Their stories echoed in the hearts and minds of all who knew them, passing from generation to generation as examples of unbreakable courage and unparalleled loyalty. When we look at these stories today, we realize the legacy these men left behind. These weren't just tales of suffering and death but of triumph over fear and human limitations. They faced the impossible, making them almost mythical figures to the people of their time. They weren't superheroes, but flesh and blood men whose faith elevated them to a level of strength and courage that still challenges our understanding. They proved that true faith doesn't yield to fear and that the greatest reward lies beyond this life. The sacrifice and devotion of the apostles did not end with their deaths. On the contrary, their lives and stories became the foundation of a faith that spread across the world and withstood the test of time. Their actions were not in vain, as the courage and faithfulness with which they embraced their mission left a profound and lasting mark on the hearts of those who followed. The apostles gave their lives so that Christ's message could be shared, and this legacy continued to resonate, inspiring Christians for generations. Every sacrifice, every trial they faced, transformed into a powerful example of faith and commitment. These men were more than religious leaders, they were models of a life dedicated to a greater purpose. Throughout the centuries, Christians from all parts of the world have found strength and motivation in their stories. When we read about Peter, John, Paul, and so many others, we are reminded that commitment to Christ demands not just words but actions that reflect faith in its purest form. The apostles lived what they preached, and this authenticity is what strengthens their legacy to this day. They became beacons of hope, living examples that faith in Christ is a source of strength that transcends life's hardships. Their impact wasn't confined to their immediate followers, it crossed generations and spread across continents. Their teachings were passed down from one person to another, from one group to the next, forming the foundation of what we know today as Christianity. They didn't just follow Christ, they created a path that would guide others to do the same. Their perseverance in the face of persecution and their unwavering loyalty to Christ became the basis of the traditions and values that make up the church today. These values, maintained and strengthened throughout the centuries, are testimonies to the depth and beauty of the faith they taught and lived. The apostles planted the seeds of a faith that would grow and become a flourishing tree, offering shelter and strength to millions over the course of history. The apostles' legacy is an invitation to reflect on the impact we can have on future generations. Every decision, every act of faith, can be a seed we leave for those who come after us. The apostles' story did not end with their lives or martyrdoms. Much of what we know today about these men and their sacrifices comes from Christian traditions and the writings of the Church Fathers, who kept their stories alive over the centuries. These accounts are not just memories, they are powerful testimonies that preserve the memory of Christ's earliest followers, offering inspiration and guidance for those who came after. In the first centuries of Christianity, leaders like Irenaeus, Tertullian, and Eusebius documented the lives and legacies of the apostles, reinforcing the importance of their mission and ensuring that their sacrifices would never be forgotten. These writings and traditions were essential for the Church's formation and the transmission of Christ's teachings. By recounting the stories of faith and courage of the apostles, the Church Fathers not only preserved the past but also helped shape the identity of a new faith that was expanding and gaining strength. The accounts of martyrdom, the stories of miracles, and the lessons each apostle taught became spiritual foundations passed down from generation to generation. For early Christians, these traditions were more than ancient stories, they were living reminders of what it meant to follow Christ. Over time, these traditions spread, reaching different cultures and adapting to local contexts. The story of John in boiling oil, of Peter crucified upside down, of Paul facing death with bravery, all of these were passed on to inspire faith and devotion. The way these accounts remain alive is proof of the strength the apostles had in their lives and the influence they continue to wield to this day. It wasn't just about keeping their memories alive, but about making their stories the foundation of faith for new followers, even in distant times and places. These traditions and historical accounts also strengthen the Church by showing the transformative power of Christian faith. When early Christians faced persecution, They found strength in the apostles' examples, whose lives were testimonies of resilience and faithfulness. This continuity, preserved by the Church Fathers and the guardians of Christian traditions, was essential for the faith to consolidate and expand. The apostles' mission did not end with their lives. It became an eternal legacy that would guide the church and believers on their spiritual journey. For you, the viewer, learning about these traditions is an invitation to dive into the roots of the Christian faith. Each account is a reminder that faith is built upon a long history of courage, sacrifice, and commitment. Like the video, leave a comment on what touched you most about this story, and stay with us to explore more stories that reveal the beauty and depth of Christianity from its earliest days. The Apostles' journey is a remarkable testimony of faith, courage, and sacrifice. These men faced everything, from persecution to martyrdom, to keep Christ's message alive. They show us that when we're committed to something greater than ourselves, there's no obstacle big enough to hold us back. Their lives didn't end with their deaths. They became a legacy that inspires millions to this day. May their example remind us of the strength true faith can have, and the impact each of us can leave for future generations. If this story touched you, like the video, share it, and stay with us to explore more stories that reveal the depth of Christian faith. See you next time.